This is a brief overview of the Liberatory design cycle that we'll be using during this project. I want to first thank the National Equity Project for developing this frame. And it's one that takes teams or individuals through a process of seeing and understanding equity challenges, better understanding them, and designing and testing potential strategies. In this video, we're going to start in the center and then go around to the 3 pairs of actions. At the center of this process are the core habits of notice and reflect. Noticing is about practicing awareness of things within oneself, like your identity, your emotions, your sense of the power and differentials in the situation. Notice is also about practicing awareness of things in the situation around you, such as the context, the people involved, or the history of the work. Reflection is when you turn your noticings into adjustments of your actions, reflecting by asking questions like, well, what did I do? What effect did it have? And what am I going to do differently next time? Noticing and reflecting are at the center because they are embedded into every step of the processes that surround them. As we go around the cycle, we're going to start with see system and empathize, both of which are parts of clearly identifying the equity challenge that you're going to try to solve for. Seeing the system is looking at the patterns of inequity so that we aren't just putting band-aids on things. It's looking for the root cause when identifying the challenge that you're going to try to solve for. For example, and this is going to be an example we return to as we go through this, if you notice that the issue that you're having is that attendance among Latinx women is down in your program, it's not looking only at individual cases, but also understanding and trying to see that there are likely systemic factors at work that might be impacting the situation. Empathy and empathizing, on the other hand, is trying to deeply understand the nuanced stories of those that are impacted by the challenge, not only to understand, but also to build and deepen relationships. Understanding the systemic is always interwoven with understanding the deeply personal. Talking to the young women who are not in attendance will be critical to understanding their stories and coming to a solution and just building the relationships required to invest them in the solution as well. Next, we're going to talk about define and probe, 2 parts of better understanding the challenge. We define the challenge by naming the problem, and we have to ask ourselves if we understand the situation's complexity enough to really design a solution. And it's really okay to continue to learn about a really complex situation. To continue with our previous example, if attendance among young women is down, and through your empathizing and system seeing, you might define the problem as the bus that goes through the neighborhood where a group of 15 of our participants live, including 10 of our Latinx young women. It only comes once every hour, and when they miss it, it'll be an hour before the next, so they go home because they're going to miss most of the program anyway. How might then we increase on-time transportation for all of these participants? Or it's just as likely that you could define the problem as the bus that goes through the neighborhood has a driver on Saturdays that will go past the group of 15 Latinx participants, even if it's half full. How might we increase on-time transportation for all of these participants? Either problem statement is plausible. Either problem definition is plausible. So how do you understand the system well enough to define it? Well, one way is by thinking through the use of probes. So we probe a challenge when we create mini experiments to let us know if our understanding of the system and the challenge is accurate. These mini experiments are ones that, won't harm anything if they fail. But for example, we might create a mini survey that asks if the most frequent issue with the buses is that they come infrequently or that they go by without picking you up. Or, as a different probe, you could observe the situation the next Saturday to make sure that your understanding of the situation is correct. In the final part of the Liberatory design cycle, we prototype and test in order to develop potential strategies that will address the equity challenge. We create a prototype when we develop a strategy that addresses the problem we've defined. But in order to know whether our strategy is likely to work, we have to develop a test, which is a little bit more high stakes than a probe, but where the goal is still to learn whether or not we're on the right track with our design. A test looks a little bit more like the actual prototype that we're trying to get information on, rather than just like probing the system to make sure that we better understand it. And finally, we really just get to test the solution and use the feedback that we get to improve the design. For example, a prototype solution might be intervening via a meeting with the transit authority to share the details of your program and the challenges with the drivers on the route. That could be one potential prototype. Or it could be creating a carpool network so that everybody gets picked up. In either case, we can do a first test to see if there's an impact. And as we go iteratively through this cycle, we might find that we have to start over with seeing the system again and empathizing again. And that's okay. It's by going through this cycle and deepening our understanding of ourselves and the system, by keeping noticing and reflecting at the core. That's what's going to allow us to make progress on equity challenges that can sometimes seem just impossible or intractable. We look forward to working through this with you. Thanks.